Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We can see participants coming in now, so thank you very much for joining us. And we hope some more will come in the coming minutes. But we really appreciate you being here with us at the Knowledge and Learning Commons. We just saw a short video played showing the doors opening to the library and archives here at UN Geneva. So welcome, my name is Natalie. I work here at the library and archives for the Commons. You can see today we have our platform is WebEx events. Closed captions are available if you'd like to enable those, and you can find the CC button, the closed captions button at the bottom left of your screen. You can also choose to change the language to another language besides English, and it will be translated from English. Just please note that these captions are automatically generated via WebEx. To interact with you today, you'll see on the screen as well, we have Slido. This is a way for us to interact with you. If you have questions for our speakers today, you can either use your phone and scan the QR code that you find on the screen, or you can use your desktop and type in slido.com. Today, the code is mental health, so don't hesitate to pose any questions throughout the session or ask for assistance if you need. And we'll get to those questions later after the presentations by our speakers. Please also vote for the questions you'd like answered, and we'll make sure to get to the most popular ones. So we'd love to see you over on Slido. If you're new to the Commons, this is our space that's really dedicated at UN Geneva to informal learning and knowledge sharing on issues of both multilateralism, but also professional development. And we're really glad to be part of many sessions in the coming weeks with regard to World Mental Health Day, which is on Sunday. And we have with us here staff counsellors from across UN Geneva, and we're really glad to be a part of this open discussion together. We've been exploring mental health at the Commons before COVID, but also mostly as COVID arrived last year, looking at different ways we can support our mental health through this crisis. And so it's great to be seeing so much more discussion and more openness about supporting our mental health in different ways. And while there's a lot of progress, there's also a lot that we still have to achieve in terms of the challenges we face with regard to support and services, access to these support and services for mental health. And hence the theme of 2021 is mental health in an unequal world. And today's session will be looking at this theme through the lens of mental health in an evolving world. Our speakers, who I'll introduce to you very soon, will be guiding us through a few objectives. We'll be looking at well-being in terms of connecting with our minds and our bodies, understanding also different approaches to mental health and taking care of ourselves, looking also at the power of nature and what this means for our mental health. We'll be looking at culture as well, and how we also see mental health through different lenses of culture, and also where to go to next, so overcoming barriers in seeking support. I'm happy to introduce to you our range of speakers. Now you can see them on the screen. They'll all be saying hi to you in this moment. So our main speakers today are Morgan Shadbash, Mary Bridget Leahy, and Karina Pina. So first to Morgan, hi, thanks for joining us.
Hello, thank you, Natalie.
It's great to have you here. So we'll just go through all of our speakers today. They'll just be naming their titles and their organizations, so you know who they are. Morgan,
yes, so my name is Morgan. I'm a clinical psychologist and I'm working with UNOCHA as a staff counselor.
Thank you, Morgan. Over to you, Mary. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Mary Leahy and I'm here with UN Geneva, and I'm the staff counsellor along with Karina at UN Geneva. Welcome, everybody.
Thanks, Mary. And finally to Karina.
Hi everyone, I'm very happy to be here with you today. I am a staff counselor for UN Geneva. I'm just starting now with UN Geneva, and until last week I was with UNOCHA. Thank you.
Great to have you here, Karina. So these are our main speakers today, but we also have interventions and also some support during Q&A from other staff counsellors here across the UN system. And you'll see them on the screen as well. We have Jorge Sierralta, Nancy Baudouin, Elizabeth Openshaw, and Namondi Jain. So Jorge, over to you.
Yes, I am Jorge Sierralta. Happy Mental Health Day. I am based in Geneva. I am the Chief Staff Counsellor for UNOCHA. Thank you.
Thanks, Jorge. Nancy, you're also here with us.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Lovely to be here and joining the rest of us staff counsellors online for this World Mental Health Day launch. I'm Nancy, staff counsellor at UNAIDS from Geneva. Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. Elizabeth, you're here as well.
Hi there, good afternoon. My name's Elizabeth Openshaw and I'm the Senior Staff Counsellor for IOM. Just to say that on the 27th, we also have another event in French with myself, Jorge and Nancy. So be sure to tell your colleagues or come along again. Thank you.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Yes, we'll make sure to have a reminder at the end of the session for other things you can join. Great reminder. And finally, to Namon.
Hello, good afternoon, and happy to be here. I'm Namondeep Jain, and I'm an intern at the UN Library and Archives, and I hope you have a good session.
Thank you, Namon. A big thanks to all of our speakers for preparing the content that you'll see now, and a big thanks to you for joining us and being a part of this discussion. We'd love to have your contributions and questions as we go through. So let's get started. We're going to begin with Moshkan. So over to you.
Good morning, everybody. So Mojan, which topic would you like to talk about today to celebrate World Mental Health Day?
Right. I thought to first of all talk about what is considered as normal or not normal behavior, given the different cultural backgrounds, and then maybe also to look at when to seek help, professional help.
Great. And talking about mental health, Mojan, are there differences in the various cultures, and would we need to take the differences into consideration?
Yeah, so generally spoken, all human beings are the same wherever in the world, and but still we can even say genetical information is up to 99% the same. But when we look at cultural differences, this is the part where there are many many differences and variations, which we need to take into considerations as mental health professionals. And if we, maybe just to illustrate it, if we have an image, I have an image here. If you look at this person, now this person in the Western world would be considered maybe as normal, or even if it is a maybe Buddhist background to have a bald-headed woman. But if we look at it in the East or in the Middle East, she may not be considered as normal. Maybe we look at another image just to illustrate the differences. Here also, the lady with a long neck may be considered in some cultures as a beauty. And in other cultures, if she would walk on the street, it would be considered as an abnormal way. And I have one more illustration for you. So here also the elderly lady, again, looking at it at the context, like if you meet her in Cuba, she may be rather cool or a cute elderly lady, but in other cultures, it may be seen as absolutely abnormal, her behavior. So you can see it depends very much what behavior in which context we look at.
Great. And to develop from that, Mojan, who decides what is a mental health illness? And is there a common treatment for all?
Yeah, so as you can see, first of all, what is normal or not depends on what the majority considers as normal. So we could almost say what the majority does is the normal thing.
Great, thank you, Mojan. And so this leaves us with a huge ambiguity. How do the professionals decide as to who has an illness and would need support? And if mental health professionals are not easily accessible in one country, does it mean that no professional from another culture can judge or provide support?
Right. So first of all, we as professionals, we have certain criteria to judge what is normal or abnormal. So the ambiguity is a little bit reduced in the sense that professionals, for example, look at if there's a subjective suffering. If, for example, the person has a dysfunction in their day-to-day life. For example, let's say you can't concentrate anymore, or you can't motivate yourself to get out of bed. These are criteria which are important. Then maybe a third criteria is self-harm, or intentions or harming other people. Having said this, it's not so easy. It has to be discussed. It has to be weighed up to make a valid judgment, because it may be that someone who is, for example, an excessive drinker or abuses substances, they may not have a subjective suffering from it, but their day-to-day life or their family may get harmed. So in these cases, it's also important. And to get to the second question, what you said, like, yes, it is possible to access professionals from other cultures, but it is important that they are culturally sensitized and also well informed.
Great, thank you, Mojan. And if a mental health professional is not available in my country, for example, or the professional does not have the same cultural background as me, could they still help me?
Yes. So it definitely makes a difference if how familiar the professional is with the specific culture. For example, have they lived in the culture? Do they have enough information about the background of the culture to help the specific person? And also, we need to consider that within a culture, there are many subcultures. So in that sense, it may be that, for example, a Western person feels much more understood and helped by a professional from the East, and vice versa. So the individual may, within the culture, still be different. And another thing which I would like to highlight is we have a number of native treatments, and it may be that people benefit better for their recovery from the native treatment. And in that sense, there is not only the Western evidence-based approach which would fit everyone.
Right. This is very interesting, Mojan, and shows how complex the whole topic is, and that there is no absolute definition of who may be mentally ill or not. It has to be discussed and defined, correct?
Yes, you're right. So we don't have, as psychologists, the absolutes of healthy or ill. Like, it's easier in the physical medicine to talk about, for example, if someone has a tumor or doesn't have a tumor. When it comes to mental health, it's a little bit more of a dimension. And on this dimension, we all have a tendency of certain tendencies towards illness or health. But it may be that I have even tendencies towards the illness, but I can still have a very normal life and would not need professional support.
Oh, great. And could you give us an example for this?
Right. So if we take, for example, people who are working in the show business or even politicians, among them as mental health professionals, we see that there are sometimes higher tendencies of narcissistic, what we call narcissistic personality disorder, or histrionic personality disorder, or they may have manic tendencies. But having this, it may work very well for their profession. They may be very successful because, for example, these particular professionals I mentioned, they need people who are a little bit more maybe flamboyant, who are maybe have an elated mood, or maybe even are very bubbly to entertain others. So it can be suiting very well. But if these tendencies become too strong, it can be that it hinders them and becomes dysfunctional rather in their family life or in their personal life.
That's very interesting, Mojan. Thank you. And so how about cultures where mental illness is more of a taboo or stigmatized? Can you give us an example here as well, please?
Yes, so this is in fact a difficulty. For example, we know in the Arabic cultures where sometimes mental illness is mistaken with madness and there's a stigma. So what happens is very often we observe higher numbers of individuals going to medical doctors and talking about having headache, instead of maybe if they have symptoms of depression. This is how they display it rather.
Ah, yes. And why is this?
I think one reason for it is definitely fear of being stigmatized. And also, like, physical illnesses are often much more accepted socially. People get more sympathy for physical illnesses compared to mental illnesses. And it can also be a lack of awareness and access to knowledge, to information. And as a result, it can be that the person doesn't receive the correct treatment that they would need to recover.
That's very true. And so to summarize, Mojan, what do you recommend to enhance the access of mental health for all?
Yeah, so I would first of all suggest that we have to help increasing the psychological literacy, the kind of provide more psychosocial awareness so that people themselves are able to recognize symptoms and to a certain extent at least, and then seek support early enough. The second thing I would like to mention is fighting stigma is very important. So we need to continue fighting stigma to enable more people having easier access to mental health services. And finally, it's good to consult a professional, a qualified person who can support. And also, just to remember again, there is not one approach which fits all.
Fantastic. That's great, Mojan. And just finally, so we're all working with colleagues from different cultures and may tend to label the behavior of another colleague as not normal. What tip would you give us for this?
Yeah, so this is unfortunately an unconscious bias, and we all fall for it. And there is this tendency, we call it ethnocentrism. There's this tendency to believe that what I'm doing or my culture and are the norm, and every other way is kind of a strange deviation of it. So what would be important to prevent is first of all to be aware of our judgments and to try to develop a non-judgmental mindset, which is rather integrating everyone in their different ways they are.
Thank you very much, Mojan. That makes great sense. And now I'll just hand back to Natalie.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Moshka and Mary. Super interesting looking at culture, and I think it's so relevant to hear us here at the UN as well to ask these questions. Psychological literacy, that's also something completely new to me. Maybe we can address that a bit more in the Q&A. Maybe you might have questions. So for our attendees, if you have questions for Moshka or Mary, don't hesitate to go to slido.com. The code to join us is mental health, and you can ask questions, and we'll get to those after the speakers today. Thank you very much to you both. We're moving on now to Karina and Jorge. Over to you.
Hello, colleagues. Can you hear me well? Thank you,
Hello,
Moshka and Mary, for this very wonderful discussion.
So thank you, colleagues. Can you hear me well? I understand. So Karina, again, welcome to this panel discussion. And you as a mental health professional, please tell us what topic would you like to discuss today?
Thank you, Jorge. I would like to talk about how our modern society, globalization, and the access to several resources of help might be shading the real healing process aspects, especially because it frequently makes people more distant from themselves, from their nature, from their body signs and intuition.
Okay, so modern society. So can you please tell a little bit more about this modern society and as a mental health professional?
Thank you, Jorge. Sure. So we live in an immediate world. And when it's about mental health care, we are often looking for immediate solutions. We are always looking for perfection when actually perfection doesn't exist. Today we can connect easily to each other. We do more and we do much more, much faster because of the use of technology. But it creates a paradox because while we are feeling connected, many people are more and more feeling lonely.
Okay, well, that's really, so people are feeling lonely and people are, you said, looking for immediate solutions, quick solutions. Can you please tell a little bit more about this also?
Yes, thank you. So when people look for support for mental health support, they are in a vulnerable state, right? So maybe they just want to ease the pain and then they might look for easy solutions. For example, in my country, in Brazil, we have a church that promises to cure depression in a 3-minute session. And it's not only in Brazil, this church is all over the world, but it started in Brazil. So we have a lot of people, even incompetent professionals, that they have good branding, good websites, good networks, but they're not really trained to understand the brain and soul of the human being. And I am using the term immediate solutions because people often fail to realize that if they are suffering from any psychological aspect, it was a process to get where they are. So to solve whatever they are feeling now, to solve their issues is also a process. There is no magical solution. So when you're looking to immediate solutions, is not a healthy approach because, as I said, we are vulnerable. People might be desperate, and then they don't have the time or they don't reflect enough to look for trustworthy resources.
Hey, thank you. Interesting. So please, I mean, on this immediate solution, we are on this fast food. Everything that is immediate, quick is very praised. So how to change our mind shift when it comes to mental health, not to become a victim of these immediate solutions and quick solutions, quick fix, I like to say.
Quick fix. Thank you. I just would like to say something before that there are two reasons that people fall from immediate solutions. One is because when people are looking for help, they're in a stage that they're not able to cope anymore. I mean, most of people when they look for psychological support for the first time is because they're already having symptoms or issues or maybe depression, anxiety. So then they are very vulnerable because they are suffering. And the second thing is when people are suffering, they want to easily escape the pain. So then they become victims of immediatism. So how to not be a victim of this? The first step is to acknowledge that you need help. And the second step is to find good professionals. It has to be people that have the studies, that have the credentials. It can be psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors. We always have to check if people are registered, not only if they have a nice website, but are they registered in a national body. And in addition, when we go to therapy, even if you're dealing with a good professional, it's not because the person is a good professional that this person will be a good match for you. There are different lines of work that are suitable for different people. So you can always reach out. I mean, if you're lost, you don't know which kind of professionals are there, you don't know where to start, you can always reach out to the services of your office, of your agency, the counseling office, because not only we are going to support you, but we're going to guide you on the next steps if needed, if you need psychotherapy, for example.
Wow, very good, interesting. So you said a little bit earlier, Karina, that this issue of globalization make us a little bit more distant from our nature and true self. Can you please elaborate a little bit more on this? I'd like to hear more about this.
Sure, thank you. So what I mean by that is that in the modern world, you look for perfection because we see others as perfection. Let's say social media, what people post is like parts of their lives, and we have filters, we have nice sentences, we have we sell ourselves, and we know that people do it, but still we compare ourselves to others. And then this might, because we see others as perfect and we see our imperfections, so it might add up to cause depression, anxiety, or just general unhappiness. The experience of suffering awakes the fact of that we are vulnerable, and the reality of life is that we are unbalanced. We are always looking for balance, but we will never be totally balanced, and that's normal. This is part of our nature. So nowadays we are invaded by a lot of information and demands all the time. The media and the social media are dictating what we should be, and it's happening in a pace that has never happened before. So these constant intrusions of our psychological space do not give us time to reflect, to experience, and to digest. That's why we are more distant from ourselves, because we are always living the external world. Our psyche can't follow all this process that is happening, all these intrusions, and then it affects us in a deeper level of our beings, an unconscious level. Sometimes we don't even realize.
Thank you, Karina. I mean, you really raised a very important issue. I mean, this morning my daughter was saying, "Oh, I got these 10 likes." So how social media is influencing on our mental health. What do you see now nowadays? What is happening with our social media and the impact of the social media on our mental health? Can you please tell more a little about this?
Thank you, Jorge. Thank you. So social media is part of technology, and technology is product of the human mind. So technology is not even disconnected from what we are, and technology, of course, it's great. It saves lives every day. But we feel that when we are doing social media, for example, your daughter, we feel that we are doing something, but most of the times we are just going down and just automatic. It's just an automatic and empty movement that brings us nothing. Like we might lose 40 minutes on our phones and we don't even know what we were doing there. So we have the idea that we are saving time because we use technology so we can be connected to a lot of people. We can do a lot of things at the same time, but we are often just killing it. We are just killing time. We are just distracting ourselves from our own existence. And through technology, at times we live fake connections, we consume fake news, we crave for stimulation, and when we get it, it's never enough. So the internet shows us how imperfect we are, and then the internet provides solutions. So we're trying to find solutions for how we look, how we think, and how to address mental health challenges, for example. So sometimes when I talk with our clients about apps, well-being apps, meditation apps, sometimes just serve to fill up in the to-do list of someone, and then people are even more frustrated. So to answer your question, I would say that depending how we use technology, yes, it can contribute negatively to our mental health.
Yeah, thank you, Karina. I'm deleting just now my Facebook account. So how to make a better use of technology, because distracting us is creating issues. We are craving for approval. How many likes? As I was telling my daughter, why you are so, much pressure for this. So how we can use technology, Karina? If you can say just, I know we don't have a lot of time, and this is an important topic, but please tell a little bit more how we can use technology in favor for our own mental health.
Thank you, Jorge. So we just need to use our tools in a conscious way in our favor. We need to choose what we are consuming on our phone, or anything that connects us to the external world. We need to be mindful about how much time we are spending, and we need to choose how and why we are connecting to certain people. The speed that things happen in the online world does not give us the space, especially young people, to reflect about it. So we need time, because you and I, we have lived without phones, but let's say teenagers nowadays, they grew up with screens in their hands. So we need to make this effort to consume consciously and leave other things outside the internet. The fast pace and constant intrusion do not allow us to live our symbolic life, to hear our intuition, and to be with ourselves. I would like to say a sentence from Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist. We need to allow ourselves moments of solitude away from the influence of the other minds in order to explore and understand who we really are. But nowadays we cannot be alone. If we are alone, we are in our phones. So just be alone sometimes. In the beginning it's difficult, but then you will see how useful it is for yourself.
Okay, Karina, I see that we have just 1 minute. So can you please briefly tell us what might be other problems affecting our mental health in our modern society?
I would talk about the environmental issues, because the Earth is running towards its climate tipping point, and with that we are suffering, consciously or unconsciously, the psychological consequences of it. Again, every day we are invaded by information. We see that our society is in an automatic way of existence. Humans are doing, unfortunately, a lot of things that are damaging the Earth and affecting our physical and psychological health. We know now, even those that don't care, about climate warming and the consequences of it. So there are many examples. One of the examples is like last year we had a very cold winter in Brazil, which is not normal. And here in Switzerland that we have the decrease of the glaciers.
So that is also affecting our mental health, our well-being. Karina, because we're running out of time, I think it's a very important conversation, discussion, but any last sentence and comment that you would like to make before we we close this conversation?
Yes, I would like to say that to preserve our mental health in the world that we are living nowadays, we should monitor our environments and the daily intrusions that we have to our psychological space. We need to be conscious of what and how we are consuming from the external world and then reflect on it. So we stop living in the automatic modern world and we can choose how to live and who we can be and who we want to be. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. So we need to choose how to be. So it's about the being. Thank you very much, Karina, and thank you. Over to you, Natalie.
Thank you, Karina, Jorge. That was super interesting. Thanks for reminding us this immediacy, and a lot of technology is great for advancement, of course, but to always be mindful. And I like this idea of conscious consumption. Thank you for sharing that with us. If you have questions for Karina or Jorge, don't hesitate to put it into slido.com. I know we had a few questions in the chat about that, so you can go to slido.com. The code is mental health if you'd like to join us in the conversation over there. Thanks to everyone joining us in the comments as well. All right, we have our final presentation. So over to Mary and Naman. Thank you.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, Naman.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, wonderful.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you, Naman.
So what would you like to talk about today? Well, we are celebrating World Mental Health Day.
Today, Naman, I would like to speak about the role of nature with a particular focus on water as a healing practice. For me, water has always been a source of life and well-being.
That's wonderful. So, Mary, you are from Ireland, and it's an island surrounded by water. So, is this what inspired you to choose this particular topic?
Good guess. Yes, absolutely. Ireland is a culture built around water. And for the Irish, Celtic traditions, which date back 10,000 years, are interesting and still relevant today. So for the Celts, healing practices were linked with the spiritual world. Ancient therapeutic practices that incorporated water, the natural waters in the environment, like Karina talked about the environment and its importance. And in Ireland, we have many rivers, lochs, lakes, and bogs, which are wetlands. And of course, we have the rain. It rains a lot in Ireland. And then also, it's important to remember that Irish traditional medicine is based on herbal remedies. So for people living in Ireland, water and health and history are connected.
Interesting. Well, so can you give us a few examples of the curative aspects of water in Ireland?
Yes, Naman, I have in mind a professor from the National University of Ireland, Ronan Foley. So Ronan has written a book called Healing Waters. And in his book, he talks about 5 curative aspects of water: spirituality, rest, sweating and detoxing, thalassoc therapy, which is sea bathing, and also the modern spa. So, for example, we can think of rest as a cure with spa towns, which are resorts that usually contain hot springs, although you won't find a hot spring in Ireland. And also, but if we think about them as being places where there are copious opportunities to relax. So we allow our bodies to detox, to sweat, to perspire, to allow the toxins to be excreted from our body and also from our mind as we relax. It's similar to the idea of Turkish baths or a sauna. And if we look at one point, thalassoc therapy has been proven to cure many ailments for the Irish. And while bathing in the mineral-rich seas around our island, our bodies can heal and be rejuvenated. There was a growing trend during COVID times that people went winter sea swimming, so they swim year-round in the sea. But of course, if you're going to try this, it's important to stay safe and swim with others and acclimatize yourself gradually. You can also cheat a little by wearing a special swimming hat, little booties and gloves, or of course, even a wetsuit if you prefer. But also in many countries, there are ancient healing rituals and techniques, for example, like Reiki in Japan, acupuncture in China, yoga in India. And there's lots of herbal knowledge of the indigenous people that is still used today called ethnomedicine. So once you begin to review various cultures, it becomes apparent that most have similar objectives and goals. And here in Oman in Geneva, we also have very good spots to experiment with water and well-being. For example, we have the Bain de Paquis, we have Les Bains Bleus, or we can simply contemplate the beautiful lake from the Palais, especially now from the H building.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, now that you've told us that water and health are interconnected, well, can you elaborate more about it and tell us more how they are interconnected?
Yes, of course. That's a very good question. So, as you know, water is the most simple and essential element of our existence, and we have a tendency to forget its importance. So, water accounts for around 60% of our body, and it's essential to every cell in our being. So, drinking enough water throughout the day can help us stay hydrated. And if we don't stay hydrated, our physical performance can suffer. This means a reduction in our motivation, an increase in our fatigue, and it can also make exercise feel much more difficult, both physically and mentally. And our brains, it's important to remember that our brains are strongly influenced by our hydration status. It affects both our mood and our levels of concentration. A lack of water, for example, can trigger a headache or a migraine for some. So if you end your workday with a headache, drinking water can help relieve it. And also increasing water is very important as it helps us with our digestive systems. And for me, when I think of this year's theme, mental health in an unequal world, I would say that we are fortunate to live in countries where clean water is easily accessible compared to in other places, because water plays such an important part in our health and well-being.
Well, you're absolutely right about that. So, as a as a mental health practitioner, do you think that these healing techniques that were practiced by ancient civilizations can benefit us even now in this modern era?
Yes, as a staff counsellor, I would say that by recommending natural healing processes for staff members, for example, a walk in nature, mindfulness meditation, or having a relaxing bath after work, I have the impression that it's a joint process. It's a whole person approach, and this is what I like about it. The mind and body connect. So if we think this process, it requires considerations of all aspects. So our body, our mind, our emotions, our spirit. And in our modern era, I think it's very important to pause and think about this. So for me, ancient healing practices can help us to find peace and kindness in this modern day, and it can allow us to heal innately, connecting us, centering us, and grounding us.
Oh, okay. Definitely gonna try those. And so, I have another question. So, do you think that people are seeking these kind of alternative approaches, such as these ancient healing practices?
I would say yes. In our hectic lives, I have found that people have higher levels of anxiety, depression, and other symptoms which impact our ability to be content and to be happy. Some people do not necessarily want to see a therapist or a mental health professional. And for those people, it's good that there are alternative solutions. As Mochan said earlier, it has a lot to do with our own individual culture. So people are nowadays more aware of the effect of nature and natural solutions. We're looking back now to the ancient healing approaches, which is interesting to think that Karina was talking about modern technology. And for some of us, there's an overload. So we are looking back. And for the most part, the ancient healing approaches and methods can help us to slow down. They're easily accessible. And also, for some people, they do love the internet and YouTube. So there's many things on there in moderation to help us.
All right, well, that's amazing. And so, Mary, according to you, what are the benefits of nature and these natural healing solutions on mental health of people?
Well, Naman, the power of nature is huge. So during the long months of the pandemic, millions of us turned to nature, and walking outside was one of our top coping strategies. It really helps us to stay calm and also to be physically healthy, to be mindful in the moment. You'll notice yourself if you've ever opted to walk or bike to work instead of driving. You may have noticed the difference in your mood. You can also listen to music, for example, which helps relax us. So in the Staff Counsellor's office, we're very interested in following research from leading psychologists and from medical research studies. We offer resilience building workshops with our partners in the Centre for Learning and Multilingualism. Our current workshops look at how we can help ourselves to heal and stay as healthy as possible. And now we might just take this opportunity. Oh yes, great, you've got the image there. So some of you, some staff engage with us quite a lot, which is fantastic. And they may recognize, some of you may recognize this image that we've recently started to look at. And it's so important, we thought we'd share it again. So in this image, Dr. Chuck Hillman, who's from the University of Illinois, proves that taking a break and going for a short walk, even of only 20 minutes, this releases a protein called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And this protein has protective and reparative elements to memory neurons, and it's very positive for the health of our brain and our overall health. So in our unequal world, many of us do not have access, for example, for a garden, yet most of us will have access to a balcony or a park. And I'd like to stress that nature should not be a luxury, but it should be a resource that's available to everyone. And if you're interested, we have some links we can share in the chat, so you can find out more about the research from Dr. Hillman. And please also do sign up for more for future webinars here with us in the Knowledge and Learning Commons as well. And we have more plans for the rest of this year and for next year.
Thank you so much, Mary, for giving us wonderful insights about all these natural healing practices. And I myself am very excited to try out all these practices with water. So would you like, because we don't have much time, so I'm just going to wrap it up and ask you about any of the tips that you want to share with us. For example, how to be kind to ourselves using these natural healing methods.
Absolutely. Let me share with you an exercise from Dr. Kristen Neff, who in conjunction with her colleague, Dr. Chris Gerner, has developed an empirically supported training program called Mindfulness Self-Compassion. So Kristen has a website with loads of information, and we'll also put her website in the chat box for any of you who are interested in finding out more. So I'd like us to now do a short exercise, which she calls a self-compassion break. It takes 2 minutes or even 1 minute. So if you like, you can either close your eyes to take a break from the screen, or you can look down into the palms of your hands like this, placing one palm on top of the other and just having your gaze down. Now, think of a situation in your life that is difficult, something that's causing you stress. Call the situation to mind and see if you can actually feel the stress and the emotional discomfort in your body. Now, say to yourself, this is a moment of suffering. Be mindful, or we can say, this hurts. Ouch. This is stress. We can actually physically feel it. Now, suffering is a part of life. That's common humanity. So we can also say to ourselves, you know, other people feel this way. I'm not alone. We all struggle in our lives. Now, I'd like you to put your hands over your heart and just feel the warmth of your hands and the gentle touch of your hands on your chest. You could also do this adopting a soothing touch that feels right for you. For example, stroking your face or your arms, or actually giving yourself a little hug. Now, say to yourself, may I be kind to myself? You can also ask yourself, what do I need to hear right now to express kindness to myself? Maybe there's a phrase that speaks to you and your current situation, such as, may I give myself the compassion that I need? May I learn to accept myself as I am? May I forgive myself? May I be strong? May I be patient? Now, this practice can be used any time of the day or night, and it will help us remember and help us evoke the three aspects of self-compassion when we need it most.
Well, amazing. I already feel quite refreshed. So thank you so much for that, Mary. And I'm going to hand it over to Natalie now.
Thank you so much, Mary and Namon. I agree with Namon. Just a little moment of calm and we're back. So that's really great. Thanks for sharing so much about nature. And I think it's a perfect follow-up to Karina and Jorge, who were talking about excess and immediacy in technology. So these are ancient healing practices, but actually it's also just, I guess, coming back to our real selves. So really, really great information. Thank you. So we have time for Q&A now. We'd love to hear your questions, and we do have a few over on Slido already. So let's get to them. We have a lot of people voting in, so thank you for sharing your most popular questions. So let's get to the one that's the most popular. How is the UN supporting LGBTIQ colleagues' mental health? So diversity in mental health, a really, really good question. Can I pass perhaps first to Mojgan, because you were also looking at cultural differences and diversity, and then we can pass on to other counsellor colleagues who'd like to pitch in. Mojgan, over to you.
Right. So I would first of all say that we counsellors are very familiar with this topic, and we have worked with different individuals also from this LGBTIQ group, and would definitely be able, in a confidential session, for example, speak with the individual and to see how they can address the different issues maybe they are facing, the different misunderstandings, the different biases they are experiencing, how to deal with it best.
Thank you, Mojgan. So I guess a kind reminder to reach out if you would really like to talk to our counsellors, and they are here today. We can also share their information details in the chat with you. I'm going to pass now to Elizabeth. Over to you.
Hi there, thank you very much, and it's such an important question. I think certainly what we're doing what IOM are doing now, which I think is fantastic, is organising 3 different training sessions for staff on LGBTIQ issues. So it's really about raising awareness, because a lot of us may not really understand the differences and how we need to go about, treating people from the LGBTIQ community. So that's one way, and I think we also need to kind of not just mainstream staff well-being about all our policies, but think about practical policies and how they impact different groups differently. I think that's what equality really is, right? I've trained a bit as an LGBTIQ counsellor, and I think it's up to us as counsellors and as staff members to get ourselves educated. So there's books called Pink Therapy. There's a lot of information out there, and there's Facebook groups as well, just to educate ourselves, to really understand more and what we need to do to be compassionate colleagues. Thanks.
Really great. Thank you, Elizabeth. If you do, Elizabeth, want to share more in the chat about the trainings that are coming up, or share your details, you're more than welcome to here in the chat. Mary, is something you'd like to share as well?
Yes, I think that's a great question, and I would like to share that here we're a group of staff counsellors. Mojgan is in Jordan, and the rest of us are based in Geneva at the moment. And we also work with our colleagues and the mental health global team that are based in New York, the strategy team, and we're using their screenshot behind us all today. So there's actually 4 events that they're doing. I'll see if we can put it in the chat, but I've put in one, and there's actually one next Tuesday, the 11th of October, 3 p.m. Geneva time, and it's called A Conversation with LGBTIQ+ Personnel with the UN Global team. So definitely, it's a topic that's very important for everyone to feel included. And oh, fantastic! Daniela Milic has just put the full calendar as attached to for us in the chat. So fantastic question. Thanks, Natalie.
Thank you, Mary, and thanks for sharing. That's a great event to all attend. So thanks also to Daniela for putting there in the chat. Okay,
Can I add something? Sorry on that. I know, I mean, we're lucky enough to have in IOM a diversity inclusion specialist, and I know Andrea, who's here on the call today, has been working in Latin America and Americas with him around, you know, the impact on mental health for this group as well. So I'm not sure if she wants to say something. I'm putting you on the spot, Andrea, but it would be great to hear from you.
thanks, Elizabeth. For our attendees joining, they don't actually have the ability to speak audio-wise, but if you want to put anything in the chat, that would be great. We'd love to read it out. So, but thanks, Elizabeth, for mentioning that. Fantastic. All right. So, the second most popular question is a valid one as we move into autumn. So, as it gets colder and it's harder to spend as much time in the physical environment outside, what are your suggestions for natural mental health solutions? Super interesting question. Mary, let's pass to you first.
Thank you, Natalie. Another great question. It's so true. You know, we're also well, me anyway, I'm tempted to be like to eat more in the winter as well because we can hide it more under our big jumpers. And of course, comfort food like soups and stews and curries, all that's really important. So, but what I would think of, it's a for example, people do winter sea swimming, or like Nancy here, who's here today, she also goes swimming in Lake Geneva in the winter. And there's a lot of studies and research being done to show how when we go swimming, it can shock our brain and it can help us because we have to concentrate, we have to focus, we have to breathe. And you know, people start with 1 minute, 2 minutes, up to 10 minutes, but there's evidence proving that it can really help us with mental health conditions, like for all of us, anxiety and depression. I think we all go up and down. And if anyone's interested in finding out more, there's a Dutch guy called Wim Hof who has written some books, and he has a website, and he's done a lot of experimentation on himself and people that come to study with him about how to manage outside. And he says we're just conditioned as babies. We wear too many clothes. We say I'm freezing all the time, but we're not freezing. So he said it's a mental thing that we have to get over, and that it's really important to go outside, walk in nature, breathe, just, you know, bring your umbrella, bring your gloves, buy a waterproof coat, but we'll feel so much better. And for me, I would say even if you do 10 minutes or 20 minutes, you'll feel the benefits of it. Thanks, Natalie.
Thank you, Mary. Okay, maybe I'll have to dare and get into that winter swimming. I see people doing it. Maybe I'll pass to Karina and Jorge. You did talk about technology, and I guess as the winter months come, we do tend to spend more time on technology instead of outside. Do you have any tips for us to maybe not go down that path?
Hi, Natalie. Sorry, I missed for a technical issue. I missed the last part of your question.
No worries, I'll repeat. I was asking if you might have any tips, Karina and Jorge, for the winter months when we tend to stay inside and use technology a bit more.
Okay, so you know, I think everything that Mary said is really great, but in my case, I'm not used to code. The first time I saw snow, I was 24 years old. And so for me, it would be very challenging to do all these activities. What I would say is that we should, I mean, during my time living in Switzerland, for example, I found things, for example, like hike, or even as Mary said, you can protect yourself, walk around the neighborhood, maybe play with the snow, just go back to the basics and see what you feel comfortable with, but also try to challenge yourself instead of being home and coping in not great ways or eating a lot of calories. It's important also to try to keep active, even if it's indoors. You can do indoors exercises, you can go to the gym, or you can even finally use all those apps about exercises on your phone. Thank you.
Probably just to add, I mean, we are coming through winter very soon, in a couple of months. The days are going to be very short. So it's an invitation for all of us to spend a little bit more time. If you are working, you can spend a little bit of those in Palais des Nations can at least spend 10-15 minutes just walking around the beautiful park that we have. That will be good. It's very important because sometimes by the time we leave our house, it's dark, and by the time we finish work, it's also dark, and it's very important to get to have some sunlight. That is one. And when it comes to, of course, to technology, I will just like to say, so I mean, try to observe yourself, because you can check how often, how many minutes have you spent checking your mobile phone, and how many times have you opened your mobile phone. So you all have, I think, an application. You should have it installed and you can check also and monitor. Of course, you will always find excuses, say, no, that was for work. But believe me, half of them or even more are not work related, just because it's an impulse. Just if you are waiting for a bus, just to check on your telephone. If you are inside the bus, just to go and open and read news, or when you really are craving for a stimulation. So please be aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jorge. A nice challenge for us all to check our stats on how we use our phones. Thank you for all the advice. We have a few minutes left, so we have a few questions we'd like to go through. Before I ask all of our staff counsellors what their favourite way of releasing stress is, let's look at how we can best support our colleagues who have different cultures and approaches to mental health. Maybe to Nancy first, and then to Mojgan.
Okay, thank you, Natalie. Actually, I was referring to the previous question, but all right, so how we can best support our colleagues in different cultures and approaches to mental health. I think one of them is openness and acknowledging that, you know, what is normal to one may not be, you know, in somebody else's culture, as Mojgan was saying when she spoke to us earlier. That this is, you know, the non-judgment approach. What looks normal to me may not be so in this other culture. If we are ourselves working in a culture where we are not originally from, to have an open mind to really explore what are the values and belief system in the culture in which I am, or those of, you know, colleagues who come from very different cultures to mine and who are part of our team. I mean, I think this is the richness of UN systems such as ours, is that we have such a mix of these different cultures and approaches which really expand our mind, and at the same time being mindful and curious without judgment, and also asking other people if we're not really sure, you know, some questions and such, you know, curious openness without obviously putting people too much on the spot. But that's spontaneous answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Mojgan, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yes, maybe to say that mental health should be very much part of our life. If we can try to share more awareness, or even use ourselves as examples to talk about it more. So if it comes to an extent where maybe mental health and looking after our well-being becomes like brushing your teeth every day. So it becomes an integral part of our day where we practice certain things for our well-being. If this can be included, and if we try to be examples ourselves and share it with others, it can always motivate others also to see it as a normal thing to do, or a way to see. And when it comes to different cultures, I guess stigma again plays a role here. And the more we ourselves display an openness towards this topic, we help others also to relax more and to maybe come out more.
Great, thank you very much, Mojgan. A good reminder. All right, we know we're out of time, so I wanted to ask a little rapid fire question then to our counsellors. If in just 1 or 2 words, what is your favourite way of releasing stress, for some inspiration for our attendees today? Mojgan, firstly to you.
I would immediately say sports.
Sports, great. Nancy?
Sports and music.
Great. Jorge?
Hiking and dancing, probably.
Nice. Karina.
I like to take photos.
Nice. Elizabeth.
Meaningful connections, being with friends, quality relationships.
Great. Mary.
Yes, for me, it's important to have good sleeping at night time, and nice a meal with friends is a great, and a glass of wine is a great way to de-stress.
Really nice idea. And finally, Namon, do you have any tips? What's your favorite way?
I just go for a run.
There we go. So we hope that that was a bit of inspiration for you all, some different ideas from our speakers today. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm afraid we're out of time. We've got a few more things we wanted to share with you before you leave us. And that was over on the next slide. There are a few other sessions for World Mental Health Day. A few have already passed, but there are others that, of course, Elizabeth mentioned, and a few in French as well. So please join us. And also the link to even more are in the chat if you'd like to continue and learn about the topic and speak more about our mental health and supporting our mental health. So a big thanks to our speakers and for you joining today. In terms of other sessions at the Commons, just quickly, we have a few coming up in October. If you want to be a part of the discussion on how conferencing is changing due to COVID and different technological changes, multilingualism, accessibility, join us at the Commons on the 21st of October for an open discussion. All your ideas are welcome. You can also join us on the 28th of October. We're talking about the future of work with the McKinsey Global Institute and looking at what this means in terms of global trends and what it means for us here at the UN. Finally, we also have a little note about a conference happening as part of the GCSP. It's the International Leadership Association, and they're convening in late October at the GCSP in person and online. Thanks to them as also learning partners, there is a code if you'd like to join at a cheaper rate to join as a Friends of GCSP code. Let us know if you'd like to know more about that, and we will share it with you. You can email us at commons@un.org if you'd like to know more. Over on the next screen, we have resources from World Mental Health Day on the screen. It's a resource guide for today's session. So there you'll see more documents, more materials that have actually come also from across the UN system on World Mental Health Day. Also the social media channels to get in touch and to be more involved in the discussion online. And you can also subscribe to the Commons to join us. We have sessions every month. If you're interested to come back, you can also follow us there on the social media. So thank you so much for joining all of our speakers, Mojgan, Mary, Karina, Jorge, Nancy, Elizabeth, and Namon. Behind the scenes as well, we have our producers, Nivert, Ning, and Maria. Thank you very much. It takes a village to put this all together. Your feedback is most welcome. So at the end of the session, you'll see our email address. It's commons@un.org. We'd love to know what you thought, also what you'd like to see at the Commons for future sessions. So don't hesitate to be in contact with us. You'll soon see a video of the library doors closing, but we hope to see you soon. Have a very happy World Mental Health Day on Sunday. We hope you were able to get out and see some nature as our counsellors have recommended. Take good care of yourselves and bye for now.